Welcome to Best Life Ever, the podcast with your hosts, time and energy coaches, Kimi and Pua. Here at Best Life Ever, we are on a mission to expand the way people think, work, and live in today's modern world. Today, we have an interview with Marc Mawhinney.
Marc is a lifelong entrepreneur whose mission is to help coaches build successful businesses. He achieves this with his coaching programs, his podcast, Natural Born Coaches, his Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle, and his exclusive print newsletter, The Secret Coach Club. He frequently makes media appearances and is a contributor for entrepreneur.com. You can learn more about Marc at naturalborncoaches.com. And without further ado, let's welcome Marc Mawhinney to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Well, we are big fans of your work, of your podcast, and we love your Facebook group. And but for those of us, those listeners out there who aren't familiar with your work yet, can you share with us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Well, the most important thing, I'm a big fan of the show Lost. And I know you guys are in Hawaii, so we'll spend today talking about Lost and dissecting all, 6 seasons? So, no.
Yes.
It will turn into a Lost podcast. But no, besides Lost, I'm a business coach, and my niche is helping other coaches, and get more clients. And a big focus for mine is doing that without paid advertising. So it's organically, which can be done because that's how I built my business over the last 4 years, my coaching business. So that's what I'm all about. I've got a podcast, Natural Born Coaches, and I've got a couple cool guests coming from Hawaii, I guess, that are going to be on the show soon. But the podcast, we've done 500 and some episodes, and trying to do my best to help coaches build their businesses, because a lot of coaches want to help people, but they unfortunately, too many of them have no clue how to do the business side of it, or they just can't get rolling. And I want to help them get that traction.
That's awesome. I think the world needs you, because we've worked with small businesses, and even in our past career lives, we've done a lot of small business work, and that's kind of a theme across the board. People find what they love, and they're very good at what they do, but many times being a business person and owning a business and the kind of back end business things aren't natural, and they aren't, and people's unique brilliance. And so that kind of puts a damper on how wide they can serve. And so thank you so much for doing that. And as coaches of many people who are interested in building coaching businesses and starting businesses of their own, or interested in entrepreneurship, this is going to be really great for them. So we're super, super excited to have you. Could you share with us a little bit about the tips that you have on starting a successful business on a shoestring budget, which is so awesome? What's most important about that?
Well, I started my coaching business coming off. I had about a decade in real estate where things were going awesome, and I had no stumbles. And every year I was doubling my business, and I built up to about 100 agents and employees, and I had a couple offices all over. And I thought, look out, Bill Gates, by the time I'm 40, I'll be past you. Like, I'll be scouting out islands near Hawaii, Dubai, and private jets and stuff. And then I went through not one, but 2 business closures starting in 2009, which was a big change from the 10 years of no stumbles. So when I started my coaching business at the beginning of 2014, it wasn't on a shoestring budget. It was a dental floss budget. It was just no cash reserves, right? I had to make up for that by just with effort and energy, and I'm grateful that I had the experience in real estate, because I started really young when I was 21 years old. And back then, coming out of university, I had no money as well. So I just had to work. And I knew what it took to get that real estate business going way back then, and to get it going on a shoestring budget. So with coaching, I was prepared to wait that out. I thought, if I'm grinding hard every day and putting the effort in, it's eventually going to get rolling. And sure enough, it did get going with coaching. Not saying that there weren't frustrating days and a few sleepless nights, but overall, I just put in the long hours, and then it started to get going. So what I think people have to do with coaching or any business, if you have a shoestring budget, the people that drive me nuts are people who have a shoestring budget, but then they don't want to work hard either. So they're like, well, I want it all, but I don't want to have to work for it, and you're not sitting with tens of thousands of dollars to throw into ads. So yeah, you're going to have to work on it. You got to make that decision, and you got to make up for your lack of resources with effort, but it can be done. And I think in a lot of cases, it can be an advantage to not have those resources. I don't know if you guys have read the book Damon John from Shark Tank wrote, The Power of Broke. And he talks about how important it is to basically being broke can be an advantage when you're starting in business compared to if you have a bunch of money and you're lazy or you're not focused. So I think there's some advantages to having a shoestring budget.
And when you say that, people work, they need to be willing to work hard. What kind of work would you, because, we talk to a lot of people who are saying, oh, I'm working all the time, but I don't see there's no money coming. What do you think is the most important, or what are some really important things to put your energy and your focus into in terms of building a business before you have the client flow?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I hear that a lot too. I talk to coaches and they say, oh my God, I'm busy all the time. I'm on social media, I'm posting, like, why isn't this happening? And I think if Thoreau has a quote where he said, it's not enough to be busy. The ants are busy too. The question is, what are you busy on? And the problem with a lot of coaches I find is they're busy, but they're not busy with the right things. So they're spending a lot of time working on the banner on their website or the social media share buttons or the design. Or if they're posting to, let's say, Facebook or any of the social media networks, they're not making offers. They're putting out a lot of quotes that they love from Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey and Maya Angelou and all this stuff, but they're not actually putting out offers to invite people to take the next step and invest to work with them. And I think that that's the biggest problem. And it comes a lot of times from lack of confidence. Maybe there's a fear. They don't want to look like they're being too self-promotional. They think they're going to look like Donald Trump if they put too many offers out there or something, and that's a big problem. So I always tell people that you don't be afraid to sell. You can't help if you have to sell to help, and don't be afraid. But that's a big problem is they're not putting enough good offers out there.
Love that. It's such a simple but often overlooked thing. And yeah, we've heard you say always be offering. We love that.
ABO, which is better than BO, by the way. You don't want BO, but you want ABO.
Yes, love it. Pua and I have been known to chant always be offering as a reminder to ourselves.
So glad you didn't say Pua and I have been known to chant we have BO.
We just chat we have BO.
Wow, maybe Hawaii, that's a thing. You guys don't use deodorant or something. I don't know.
It is awfully humid here. So we love that. Always be offering. And that's such a great reminder. And so talk to us also. We've heard you talk about charging what you're worth. And I think that's another place where we often feel a little perhaps insecure or unsure as we're beginning as entrepreneurs and especially as coaches. Can you talk with us a little bit about your thoughts on, charging what you're worth, making sure that your fees are matching your value and all that good stuff?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs too, get stuck on. And I hear this all the time where coaches say, I'm going to work for free or charge peanuts essentially just to get the experience, and then as I get better, then I can bump my fees up and I'll have more past clients and referrals and testimonials or so on. Just the problem there is the longer you're stuck down in the charging peanuts, the more frustrated you're going to get. You're going to resent your clients, even if you're not trying to, because they're not paying you anything or much at all. And it's just a terrible way to do it. So I'm not saying that you jump out on day one and you charge $100,000 a year to work with you or whatever, but you can't be charging what I see a lot of coaches doing, charging $50 an hour and stuff. And that's not the right way to do it. It's funny you asked that question because my fees were already high compared to the average coach, but just last week I bumped them up 33% across the board. And even for me, it was scary with a full client roster and stuff like that. I sort of balked at first and thought, maybe I'll wait a little bit. Then I said, no, I got to put my money where my mouth is, where I'm always preaching this. And the toughest person to convince actually isn't anyone in the marketplace. It's a person that's in the mirror. Once you convince yourself that you're worth it, then everyone else is a breeze. But it's just convincing yourself, and you can't have any hesitation whatsoever. If someone says, "What do you charge?" If you hesitate or if you balk a little bit, then they're going to pick up on that, and it's going to hurt your attempts to start working with them. So, I'm not saying that people have to go crazy numbers right out of the off the hop, but they do have to make sure they're charging what they're worth, and then they have to also aggressively keep increasing their prices as the months go on.
And how do you recommend to people to decide what they're worth? What do you have a process for that?
It's really tough in my world in coaching because it's not a service-based industry. So, for example, I have a twin brother, Matt, and he has a podcast editing business. And he edits my show, and he works with a lot of big names like James Wedmore and a whole bunch of them. And with his, it's very easy because he can look and see, okay, here's what podcast editors charge. It's a clearly defined service, and he's knows his numbers down pat. But with coaching, it's not something that you can put up and put in a neat box and put a bow on the top and sell it. You're really selling the transformation. So the advantage there is it gives you a lot more leeway. My brother couldn't suddenly increase his fees 10 times what he's currently charging because, that would push him out of the range. With coaches, though, especially business coaches, if you're helping people make an extra 100,000 a year, 200,000 a year or so, then, for lack of better term here, you should be getting paid for that, right? You're a big part of it and you deserve to be compensated. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to say. I mean, there's some market research there, but I also think that this isn't terribly scientific, and I'm not a woo-woo guy for the record, but I think you have to go with your gut as well. You'll know when what you should be charging and if you're going too low. And that little voice in your head is going to be telling you like, yeah, you're too low. You're worth more than that. So last week when I changed, I just went with my gut. My gut was telling me that it should be higher. And I said, screw it. Let's do it and just change them.
Cool. Wow. I just have to say, this is such a fun conversation. We just geek out on this stuff, and we love talking with a fellow coach and entrepreneur. And it's so fascinating to us to hear about just the different ways to navigate this journey. And so continuing on in this conversation, another thing that you share a lot about that fascinates us is your philosophy of daily emails. And I think that for some people, and certainly we've had the conversation, there's always that question of like, how much do we share? How much do we, drop into people's inboxes? When are we bothering people? When is it too much? How much to share? That question. And you're really committed to a daily email practice. So tell us about your thought process behind that and how it's working for you.
Well, for the record, before I started doing daily emails, April 2016 is when I started doing them daily. My email list was dead. And it was frustrating because I was doing well on social media, but my email, I was doing what other people did. I emailed once a week, maybe twice a week, every 2 weeks, and it was the same old boring crap that everyone else was sending out. So I finally said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go daily. I actually had Ben Settle on my podcast. Ben's a big email marketing guy in Oregon, I believe, and he's big on daily emails, and he was on my show, and he basically challenged me to do daily emails, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So that completely changed my list and my email results around. So it took about a month to get the traction and the results that I wanted. But now I'd never go back. It's been almost 2 years, and it just completely revived a dead list. So the problem that most people have, though, is what you'd hinted at, is that they're afraid if they start emailing daily that they're going to get an angry mob going to their house and burn their house down, kill them or something. But they won't do it. If you're sending out interesting stuff, my number one rule is don't be boring for email. So if you're not boring, people will read it. And the good news is you chase away people who probably would have never bought from you anyways. So I would rather have a slightly smaller list of committed people who are looking forward to my emails every day than a large list that's unresponsive. I know a coach has a list with 42,000 people, which you think would be great, right? Wow, 42,000 people. And she confided to me, she said, I don't get anything from my list. Like her open rates, nobody opens them or very few. And she gets no business from a 40 or very little from a 42,000 person list. And I would much rather have a 5,000 person list that's responsive and is paying me to coach them or buying my programs and my offerings, as opposed to a huge list that's not doing anything.
That is so interesting. That's one of the first, well, I hear it very rarely, right? It's always more about growing your list, and the bigger your list is, the more sales you'll have, and grow. But it makes so much sense. And also when you think like daily emails, oh God, there's going to be this mass exodus, and how am I going to keep up with writing emails every day? But it really makes sense that the people who are invested and really big fans of you and your work will open the ones that they are inspired to open. They may not open all of them, but they will stay on your list because it's interesting.
Yeah. So to give you an example, just recently I did a big push at the end of last month for my print newsletter, Secret Coach Club. And whenever I do that at the end of the month before it goes to the printer, I always do a really big push. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm emailing even more than usual. I'm usually doing 3 emails on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and then 7 on Sunday. Which sounds nuts, I know. The first time I did it, it's like, oh God, like, please don't let me end up in a body bag somewhere. So this last month I lost, I lost 1.4% of my list unsubscribed, but I got new subscribers as well, which pretty much made it even there. I didn't lose any really when I look at it that way. And so I don't know, I had like maybe 30 unsubscribes for the weekend. But I sold a lot of new subscriptions for my print newsletter. So that's what doing 7 emails a day. And that's aggressive. I'm not recommending every day you do 7 emails. Most days I do 1 email, but that was just in that promotion. But I've just taken what I'm sending out there is not garbage. So it's not like I'm sending them on the last day of the promotion 7 emails to like buy my stuff. I'm actually giving them lessons and stories and advice, different things like that that's going to help them. But it does tie into a call to action. So every email that I send has a call to action, and I think that you should be. You shouldn't do what one coach said to me. She said to me, oh, Mark, you shouldn't sell in your emails. I don't sell for the first 50 emails. I want to nurture the relationship. And that's a bad way to do it, because people are signing up for your list because they need help. And why would you pretend you're not in business, and not mention anything or give any sort of offer to take the next step? I think that's really stupid. And I say start selling on day one, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So if anyone wants to sign up to my list, you can see how I do it. But I blend into a call to action at the end by making sure I give value before that.
So cool. Yeah. Love what you said earlier. You have to sell to help. That really is a aha moment there, I think, for us and for a lot of coaches out there. Okay, so this brings up an interesting thing, I think, that's kind of coming up for me and a new awareness that I'm having in terms of my personality or my recovering personality. And I think this might resonate with a lot of people, and I've heard you talk about it before. And what prevents us from 7 emails on a Sunday, perhaps, is a deeper issue of people pleasing, right? And not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to turn some people off and just being nervous again about that sharing. And we've jokingly referred to ourselves as recovering people pleasers before, but can you talk to us about why people pleasing is dangerous as a coach and as an entrepreneur?
I think everybody struggles with that, because who goes out there and says, Donald Trump, I don't think has an issue with it, but everyone else has an issue. They don't want people hating them or not liking them. I mean, it's human nature that you want everyone to like you. And luckily for me, I had that issue before through all those years in real estate. I was always making sure that I got along with people, right? Because you're trying to broker deals and you're doing a lot of deals and you have to pull together competing interests and all that other stuff. And I always kind of prided myself on everyone liking me. So I remember an agent, like, I don't know, I was probably 7, 8 years into real estate. An agent said to me, "Oh my God, Mark, for the number of deals you do, I've never heard a bad thing said about you." And I was kind of proud of that. Now, when I went through the business closure in 2009, everyone wanted to just, kill me, right? So that changed that. And it actually was a good thing because it toughened me up and gave me a thick skin. So once I got a bunch of haters out there and had a lot of this controversy going on around then, I'm from I say a smallish city. There's 100,000 people here, but if a cat's stuck in a tree, that's a big news story. It's a front page news. And so a business closure, suddenly I'm like Hitler for, oh my God, an entrepreneur closed a business. How dare he, and he must have planned this or whatever. And I had all these people crawling out of the woodwork that were suddenly attacking me. But, at the time, I didn't think it was a good thing. But now, many years later, I look back and think that was actually a good thing because it killed any sort of nice guy, people pleasing tendencies. So if I have a hater come at me now from, sitting in his parents' basement in Boise, Idaho, that hears a podcast or something, it's not a really big deal, right? So I'll give you an example. I had a guy from Johannesburg who, out of the blue, emailed me probably 2 years ago. And he said, "Mark," he said, "I listened to your podcast. How can you do that dribble every single day? You suck," and, whatever, something like that, right? And I wasn't going to answer him because a lot of times I don't answer people like that. But I actually sent an answer back and I said an email back and I said, "Thanks so much for." He was an actual established coach, believe it or not. It wasn't like some guy that was unemployed. I saw his website and checked him out, and I said, "Thanks so much for taking the time to send the email. You're obviously a very busy guy. If you reached out to a guy in Canada about his podcast like this." I said, "I'd like to get your address to send you a Natural Born Coach's #1 fan mug and T-shirt." And I said, "By the way, we have an opening for president of our fan club, the Marc Mawhinney fan club. Would you like to, volunteer yourself?" And then I got about a string of 3 or 4 nasty emails from him. I didn't answer him again, but I shared that story around to my community. And the reason why I mocked him publicly is, first of all, the guy's going to take time to come at me. I'm not really a guy like, there's a book, Hug Your Haters. And there's some people in our world, they're like, "Oh, hug your haters and hurt people, and love them and turn them around to your side and stuff." I just don't have the patience for it. So I mocked him just to show the other coaches that, hey, it's not the end of the world if some idiot comes at you and throws some hate at you. And you can have a little bit of fun with it. I had coaches say to me, "Thank you for doing that, Mark," because I was mortified when people said less to me, and now I see that it's okay. So I don't know. Again, I think it's going through business closure and stuff like that's really it changed my thinking, but probably in a good way around people pleasing. That was an extremely long answer. I'm sorry, guys,
That's
but
great.
I have a lot to say about that. That would have been,
awesome.
if you asked me a Lost question. Hey, what did you think? The final episode of Lost, it would have been about a 20-minute answer.
Shower them with some Haterade for the last episode.
Yes.
See if they read it out loud on the air. No, I thank you so much for sharing that. I think people, there's kind of a fear in this, well, in any industry, right? If you're in the business of service and providing any sort of anything to help improve someone's life, whether it's a product, a service, whatever, you want them to like it and use it and help them. And when they vocalize that they don't like it, it's kind of it hits you real personally. And I know I used to work for Yelp, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, boo, boo, Yelp." And I get it, right? Because a bad review is like a personal attack on your baby. And it can be taken that way, or it can be used constructively if you're able to see it like that. But it can feel really, really hurtful. So I think it's really great for people to hear that there's life on the other side of one bad review, and acknowledging the haters and just celebrating the hundreds of others that love you and love your business. Like we can't forget them, right?
I had a guy a few weeks ago who photoshopped my picture on top of a monkey because I booted him out. I booted him out of the coaching jungle because he was the biggest pain in the behind. He was just trolling. he's an actual coach. He's not just a guy, just a troll, but he disagreed. I could put a post up and say the sky is blue. He would argue with that. And he drove me nuts all summer. And he finally got into it with some respected people in the community. I said, you know what, this guy's an idiot. I'm just booting him out of there. So he started sharing a picture around with a badly photoshopped, by the way, a picture of me on a monkey's body and saying all this stuff. And I actually turned it into content and I shared it on Facebook for a laugh or whatever. And then I turned it into, by the way, if you want to check out what we're doing in the coaching jungle, here's a link. And I got a bunch of people joining up, that way as well. So what is Grant Cardone says, never waste a hater, their fuel. So every time that you've got hate coming at you, you can turn that into content, whether it be an email, podcast episode, Facebook post, or whatever. Have fun with it and turn it into some business.
I love that. We always would say, we're so excited for our first bad review because that means that, what we're saying is getting out there. And I very much admire the people who this happens a lot now, especially kind of in the celebrity world where people will read out loud, hate mail or a bad review.
Jimmy Kimmel and stuff.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I love it.
I'm going to give you guys a bad review right now on iTunes.
Do it, please.
And I'm going to Photoshop your pictures onto some monkey bodies.
Yes, thank you.
Give me 5 minutes.
It's a success marker for us. So thank you.
It's awesome. Well, if people are sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get an email every day and 7 emails on Sunday and show me how this is done, which surprisingly enough, I am sitting here and I am I'm the worst. I don't sign up for email lists unless I really, really want them because my email is very precious to me, and I think at this point, people are very protective of their time and their energy and what they subscribe to, which makes what we do really interesting, right? You really got to kind of play with the psychology and get people to understand that what you have could help them. And then, there's that whole thing. But I am very, very intrigued by your brand and the way that you do business. And I am excited to send more emails out, and I'm excited to get an email every day from you. So if people are feeling that way, how can they sign up for you and how can they learn more about you?
Sure. The best spot's naturalborncoaches.com, not naturalbornkillers.com. You won't get there. But, and naturalborncoaches.com. I've got an ebook on there and the real ABCs of a successful coaching business. So you get that as well. And then you'll get my words in your inbox every day.
Love it.
Awesome.
Wow, this has been a wonderful, valuable conversation. We're so grateful. And so do you have any final thoughts for our listeners, maybe aspiring entrepreneurs, people just starting out on their coaching business, some words of wisdom from you about how to move forward with confidence?
Drink 2 bottles of wine and then go on social media. No, I'm just kidding. If that helps you, if that helps you get out there, go for it. Just to go back to what you're talking about, people pleasing, don't worry about any bad review or hater or critic or troll that comes online because it's impossible not to get that. I would say that you don't want to be in the mushy middle. If you're not getting that hate, then that's probably a bad thing. So the mushy middle is dangerous because nobody knows who you are. So I'd rather polarize and then have half of the people loving me and half the people hating me. Because when the haters come at you, then the people who support you will come out in your defense as well. So, and then the other thing too, which is a big pet peeve of mine, which I absolutely hate. If you're a perfectionist, don't get into business online, especially coaching. I hate people when they take 6 months to work on a banner on their website or something, a short PDF or something like that. Just get out there and do it. It's better to fail fast, fail often, than you can pivot and kind of course correct with it. But if it takes you 6 months to work on your banner, don't bother. Just stick to a 9 to 5 or whatever,
Wow, that's
there you have it. I don't mean to sound
advice.
cynical. Just that's what I've seen. Last 4 years, it drives me nuts.
Love it. Amazing. Awesome advice. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. We'll be sure to include everything in the show notes. And we look forward to talking with you again soon. We love being in the coaching jungle. So thank you. And we'll hopefully see our listeners there too.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Marc. You can find all the info for this show at bestlifeever.buzz/episode 81.
I don't have any time and energy.
Oh no, what? Why? Oh, is that a lead-in?
It's awesome.
Pua, I have a solution for you. Okay, so if you're looking for more time and energy, go to bestlifeever.buzz because we're going to help you cut your work week in half. Yeah, you heard that right. In half. Are you ready for that? If not, don't go to bestlifeever.buzz.
Ever.
But seriously, we have an epic download for you, a free gift for you if you are ready to reclaim your time, your energy, and be a badass in your personal and professional life. So check it out, bestlifeever.buzz.
Boom.
I didn't know what to say after.